This is a special series on the topic of relationships matter, and today I am extremely excited and pleased and honoured to be joined by Kevin Sauntry. Hi Kevin, how are you?
Hiya, what an introduction. I think I'm best going now after that introduction. Because
Oh, no, you're not, Kevin. No, you're not. We've had a great chat before I press record after a few technical glitches. And no, it's really great to have the opportunity to speak to you. My boss, Professor Sean Redmond at the University of Limerick, who's leading the research evidence into policy programs and practice team, he suggested that I speak to you because he knows you from way back in the UK. And so maybe to kick off, you can just tell me a little bit about yourself, Kevin, and your own background, please.
Yes, I was actually born in Ireland, and my mum escaped with me on a merchant ship because of the, shall we say, laundry situation where they were too likely to have not been able or persuaded. She didn't want to lose me. And so there was a means of escape, if you like, by which she, on a merchant ship, came across and then was given, some dress to look like a male and a piece of wood and me in a bag. And that's how I finished up in England and in Manchester. And from there, obviously, coming from a background of, although she loved me dearly, an unmarried mum, times were very different then, extremely narrow. It was almost an offence to be an unmarried mother. And we lived in a very, very run-down part of Manchester called Hume, and Moss Side, and they were notorious, but the conditions made the notoriety, made the human beings what they were. And eventually there was a big program where they built the biggest housing estate in Europe in a place called Wythenshawe. And we were transported there, whether we liked it or not. My mum was allowed in the front, but I wasn't. So I had to, what little furniture we have and the cat, I was in the back of the furniture van. And of course, we then travelled to this place called Wythenshawe, where we had a masonette upstairs. That was two houses, one downstairs flat, one upstairs. And my mum was very apprehensive about the place. And when I got out the van, there was all this grass in front of the houses called gardens, you know. And to me, I thought we'd been transported to some kind of paradise, you know. Because the street lamps weren't the same. They were tall concrete ones that bent down, and you know, and she gave me the key. And they just left the stuff all over the place on the garden because we hadn't paid. So you want to be thankful you'd had a lift there with what furniture you had. And I went in and come running out and said, it's got a bath and it's got a sink with two taps, you know. And the kitchen is massive and it's got cupboards.
You were amazed by the luxury.
Yeah, my mum was crying because I realise now she's isolated, doesn't know anybody, never been in this position. And I, although it was good for me as I was growing up, I was now 10 years of age. It was good for me, but not for my mum. And of course, as housing estates go, the facilities were okay, but the housing basic facilities, but no planning had been done on how to network the community.
No infrastructure.
Nothing, you know, nothing, no cinema, no help centre, no nothing, and poor employment.
Okay.
And so it developed, as it does in many countries when you do this. It got a negative notoriety.
Okay.
And I grew in that environment, and because my mum was on her own, people on their own then were seen as fair game.
Right.
And I'd witnessed the horrors of that. And so as I began to grow up and mature, I equipped myself physically to defend my mum and our patch.
Okay.
Which of course, you know, got me into some difficulties, but did work in protecting the family. And then from there, after many kinds of labouring type jobs, I discovered that in London, when wages were about £10 a week here, that you could earn £6 a day if you were working on the tunnels under the River Thames on the Victoria line. And so me and my friend went, and it was very hard and rough work.
Dangerous work.
Yes. And like people who'd escaped from prison had been taken on and never came out the tunnels down there. I think.
Okay, goodness.
So it was, and after 12 hours, you had to climb up 200 foot of straight ladders to get out. You were taken down in a big concrete bucket.
Sounds hellish.
Right, but then you had to get out yourself at the night. Anyway, the results of that was I came back with £3,000 and found a house on an estate agents for 2,400, semi-detached with a garage and gardens. And after not knowing what a mortgage was, or you needed a solicitor, and causing all sorts of chaos, I did buy it, and I moved to a place called Partington.
Yeah.
Not realising it had its own troubles, of which I found myself confronted by. But as a result of being resilient, just from the background, my mum now still in Windsor. I've married, but even that was an unusual marriage, because I got married because I was told it was important to do that.
Right. Okay.
And so my bride came in a car, and I came on the bus. Because, and of course, the other thing was they were complaining there wasn't enough flowers, and so I did acquire the flowers, only for there to be some upset afterwards, because the tradition was to give the old people the flowers after the wedding.
Okay.
And they discovered that they were giving the old people back their flowers, you see.
Oh, that's funny. Awful, but funny.
Yeah. So I'm giving you the flavour. So
yeah.
Well, from there, I met two community workers who, for some reason, felt that perhaps I could help prevent the vandalism. And the only thing I could think of doing was asking the local motor ground to deal with anyone that was doing any vandalising, which was terrible, really. But 6 weeks later, these two posh teacher youth workers came back and didn't know how to thank me, and invited me to be some sort of youth worker.
Yeah, they could see your leadership potential, obviously, you know.
So, but from there, I made the transition, and then worked there, come to understanding, and after 3 or so years there, I'd made a social transition, and a 12-month job came up in Stoke-on-Trent, and that was then 1970, and I came for the interview and got that job, which is where your professor I met when he was 6, and his mum, and that's the work developed from there, and it became more than a 12-month analysis project. It developed into detached youth work, family liaison, preventative work. Where my cliche then, I was always one for bits of cliches, that yes, we were still doing the detached youth work on the streets, etc. But I had the perception that we, instead of going to the lagoon, saving the individual, go upstream and stop them being pushed in.
Yes, so the prevention.
Yeah. So, you know, my work developed there, and we finished up having satellite communities of around 30 around the city. And that was in 16 years. Then we ran some national seminars for detached youth workers. And the project got some national recognition eventually. And we were asked to set on a home office group looking at difficulties young people had. And then
amazing.
From there, out of the blue, the government decided the size of the service, not just because of me, but the size of the service. I had some dedicated trustees who were very, very good. The size of the service was such that they gave the local authority an ultimatum that to see whether we could be taken over, and if not, a portion of the local authority's budget for the service we were offering was going to come to the project. And after some discussion, I genuinely felt, you know, the type of work we're doing should be part of a city's infrastructure. And so we were taken over, and then it was certainly another 15 years working with the local authority. By this time, of course, with all the years I've been working, in 2000, I left the statutory service and wanted to be freer again. And we then, with some, again, young people who'd worked for me, like your professor had, who wanted to set up a similar thing to the youth project again. So I became the unpaid exec of that.
Very good.
I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
We had another organisation that was embryonic, where a chap, an African chap, was desperately trying to help refugees and asylum seekers because he was one, and he was trying to help them. And I became involved in that, and that's now called Asher North Staffordshire, and it's we've got some wonderful staff, and we at the moment look after about 1,000 people. So
Wow.
that's how the work, has gone on. So
Thank you for your service, Kevin, at all those various levels. It's amazing. And we'll talk a bit more about the working with the asylum seekers and their specific needs a bit later. But maybe to go back to the youth work again. Now, I'm not a youth worker myself, so I'm not actually familiar with the phrase detached youth work. You might tell me what that is in a second, but also youth work in general is a relational profession. And I'm just wondering what your own approach was and is probably to connecting with young people. Like, how do you go about it, Kevin?
I think one of the things in relationship work, I think it gets over theorized personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That simple is best. You have to, as if you're going in as a professional, if we take it from that stage, there's some understandings, I think, basically, and that is, how do you relate to people? Because you're going to have to apply the way you successfully related to people to the young people you're going to meet. And so to avoid the missionary approach, you're going to, the only difference is that you're going to be intervening as opposed to wanting a friendship.
Yeah.
And you need to recognize that gives the other people a choice, that they don't have to
Accept it. Yeah.
So nothing from that point needs to be personal. Being told where to go is to be expected. But if you're no false modesty, you don't need an ego and you don't need false modesty. Many years ago, there was a very well-meaning book written about detached youth work by two people, and but it was rather naive because they felt you had to do it undercover. So you had to,
pretend you weren't trying to help people, is it?
Well, integrate into the group so that if it was an Hells Angel group, you'd become an Hells Angel, but a nice one,
Right, okay. It's funny.
Yeah. But but it's so easy to fall into different traps. So, it's being available, being approachable, being honest, Although I know this will sound hard to believe, but I'm a youth worker that is, I'm actually paid to take an interest in young people like yourself, to see to see if there's anything that I can be of use to you with for doing some things that you'd like to do. Now, having that availability and going, okay, I don't blame you if it sounds a bit odd, but I do go in a cafe, I do go such a place, and if you want to come along and have a coffee with us, test out whether I'm for real or not, that
is that for realness important, that kind of authenticity?
Yeah, it has to be. You cannot go in with a handbook and go, I tell you what, I need to carry a packet of fags and offer them a cigarette.
Right.
No.
Yeah, if you don't smoke, especially.
Yeah. Or look as if I'm some kind of material resource.
Right.
No. Upfront at what your job is, and as I say, the only other important thing is you have to personally be able to walk the walk that you're talking. you can't start talking as if these young people have to some way fit something that perhaps you can't even do yourself. You know, your tools are get your philosophy sorted, right? That it can't be, for example, and I know I'm being quite basic with this, so I know it's a little less than the more elevated kind of methodology. But when you're working with anybody, it's important that there's a genuinity there and that you are you. Now that doesn't mean over relating to the point where you cause a problem for yourself, but it does mean that at what points do you get angry? What is your threshold, your anger threshold? Right? You need to know them.
Yes.
Because you know, there's no such thing as you know, you have to work only up to an amber light.
Yeah, what a good point. Yeah, know your own limits.
Yeah, and so that you can say, it's a bit hard for me now. I'm struggling a bit. So I'm going to go, but that doesn't mean I'm not coming back.
Yes.
You know,
mind yourself. Yeah, mind yourself in it.
At the point you can say that and be comfortable, and don't think you've got to stick anything out.
Yeah.
But your philosophy on life and how you feel about people joining the army, how you feel about people considering prostitution, how you need to ask yourself those points to be able to answer. But the beauty of it is, I don't know is a very good answer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. Not just as a shield, but so that, you know, if you're not sure, you know, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
I do, yeah.
Your tools are your self-knowledge of yourself.
Yes, you're your own main tool. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. With what your limits are, what your understandings are, and you're not there to put your underpants and a cloak on the outside of your trousers.
Yeah.
That will all help.
Yeah.
You know, that will, young people, somebody taking an interest in them, in their welfare, once they lock into that, you are of value.
Yes.
Yeah.
To stay connected to someone like yourself as a youth worker, do the young people have to feel that they're cared for by that person? Is that important? Like their well-being is important to the person.
They have to feel secure, right? Because you've got to decide when somebody comes up to you and goes, "Hey, Kev, are you coming to ride? We've just nicked this motor," because they're going to establish whether you're really all right. Now, what's all right in a young person's, you're all right to that young person, might mean they think that you're okay with that. You know?
Yeah.
So they need to be secure with you and have a clear understanding of what you are and what you can do. And then it's very, very important, because whatever gender you are going to be an attractive proposition. You can imagine, you know, just as a personality. And so you've got a lot of thinking to do about how you handle that.
Yeah.
You're going to come across people that you are attracted to. I hear people say, some of my workers used to say, "Oh, no, I'm going to be asexual." And all right. I don't know how. What you what you do is, I mean, an example of what happened to me was I took some young people camping, and I also wasn't afraid of being more comfortable. Like they'd say to me, they'd be comfortable, but say, why have you got that? And I'd say, I need that. I just need to be able to rest because, you know, I'm working with you, but there are times when I'm knackered. And so I do need to have a decent bloody airbed.
Yeah. Instead of being on the ground, okay.
Well, they'd have the proper stuff.
Yeah.
But they'd go, you know, and I'd explain. I don't mean that I had chandeliers in the tent and a bar or whatever. But you know, I needed a decent airbed.
Yeah.
You know, and that bit more room because for the stuff I had.
Yeah.
You know, and the stuff I had for them.
Yeah.
So, but one day, it was night time, and they'd eventually all gone to bed, and I'd gone a walk, and it was Wales, funny enough, a place called Benlec, and I went into my tent, right, blurry-eyed, and as I flopped down on the bed, there was one of the young females who'd come in who had no clothes on.
Oh, right, okay.
In the tent. And it was only, it isn't because I am a smart ass. It was only because I'd learned to and thought about these things. And I said, Lynn, you're a very, very attractive and beautiful young lady, but I know you haven't meant this, but sadly, I think this might cost me my job. I don't want you to, you know, I know you haven't meant that, but I need to just go out now, and I just feel a bit sad. I hope you don't mind.
Wow, well handled. Very difficult situation.
That would have never come to me. I realised from the training I had that that would have never come to me if you don't have these thoughts, if you don't think about what's happening. And I remember going up on the hillside, just up away, and I saw her with her clothes on and scurrying back to her tent, you know? What happened, what did happen is I explained to my trustees what had happened.
Yes.
Interesting enough, I was expecting the others to say what had happened. You know, they didn't. I didn't bring up what was necessary, and I didn't shy away from anything that was coming.
Yeah.
But what did happen is I was working for many years, and she at the time was 16. 4 years later, I was doing a trip, and there was a chap saying to me, my daughter wants to come on this trip, but, you know, who are you taking with you? I mean, we had the infrastructure. And funny enough, she was married then at 20, 21.
Okay.
And she came up to this chap, she says, you couldn't send your daughter with anybody safer, I'm telling you.
Wow.
Wow,
that was powerful, actually, wasn't it?
I nearly shed a tear. And what I'm saying is, it's so important that you can't always get everything right. But if you've got some preparation,
Yes.
it helps. So it's that, look, being available, being honest, having a philosophy about drugs, sex, and rock and roll clearly in your mind.
Yeah. Not
No,
being deluded, yeah, because as you say, the asexual or not seeing certain things, or being some type of saintly figure is unrealistic, whatever the particular challenge might be for a person.
look, if we didn't find some people attractive, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, true.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we've all in relationships. It's not just how you immediately feel.
Yeah.
You process those feelings.
Yes.
You process
Yes.
those feelings. People are married and they'll see somebody that, if only the aunt had been married, perhaps not that they prefer that person.
Yeah.
That happens
Sure.
to us all.
Sure.
We process that.
Mm.
And those are the kind of uncomfortable stages that sometimes gets missed in the theory. And the theory
Yes.
tries to protect you from really absorbing that.
Yes.
So the reality, philosophy, knowing your limits, no false modesty, no ego, and don't worry that you don't know all the answers. As long as you know what you're there for, you've got some aims and objectives, and as long as you're true to them and know yourself, those are the two vital elements. More than any other communication skills, accents, anything else, that will all go naturally. Your body language will be natural. People say body language is important, so people think, oh, body language is important. Yeah. It makes them,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a worker,
Yeah.
I'm not strange,
Yeah, which can be very odd. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying is as well, if you are being real, then your body language is more likely to be natural as well, rather than putting on this facade of coolness or whatever it is, being the same when
If you want
maybe
to look at how not to be in approaching people, just have a look at your politicians.
Yeah.
You don't need a mask.
Yeah.
Sorry, I took a long time on that. I didn't mean to.
No, it's all good. Very interesting terrain there covered. If we switch now to the kind of community context a little bit more, because often youth work I mean, there's lots of different types, but often it's most important in communities that are a bit more under strain. There's a guy I interviewed a while back, Cormac Russell, who wrote a book called Rekindling Democracy, and it's a kind of asset-based community development style philosophy that he has. And he dislikes the fact that many communities that are deprived, and on the margins, are viewed by services and the state mainly in terms of their deficits and being dependent on benefits and the like, rather than on the abundance that they have and the talents there. From your own experience working in communities, do you think professionals do primarily focus on what's wrong with people and in the communities rather than what's strong with them, Kevin?
They do, but they don't have a choice.
Right.
That's not saying what Cormac said is wrong, because he's right about the talents. The thing is, there's a reverse here, that it does create the dependency, because you've got less services, less response times to what's required than other areas. So the way round it, rather than it be what doesn't solve it, is trying to get the statutory agencies to look at the talents and ability, because there's this gap where decency, vandalism, dysfunctionality is still taking place.
Yes.
You see, and of course, there's a lot of their talents go into surviving.
Yes.
And so but there is a point of education where you can connect with these services and actually educate them so that they have to respond. And not always negatively, but if I can give you a couple of examples.
Yes, please. Sorry, Kevin, can I just say you're moving around out of the
Oh, I am sorry. Yeah.
The shot a little bit. Sorry about that. Maybe if you sit back slightly.
Yeah. It's a habit of mine. Yes.
It's okay. I do it as well.
Whenever I'm thinking, I'll sort of go, No, to give you an example of what I mean is a lot of these talents get misplaced in as far as society is concerned because of the survival element, that goes on. But to give you an idea of how things can get respect, because one of the things that a community needs when it's in this state is for the way they're viewed. One of the first things that will change is not empathy. You can't empathize with chaos. No, it's respect. Because if you can get them to sit up and respect, and funny enough, your professor's mum was a leading example in this case, because she was the first lady that came up to me and said, "What are you doing with these young people? Around there, people are suspicious of you." And my explanation to her was one of the things that she then was able to tap back into the community, which was a great help. So we moved on a little bit, and one of the things on a piece of the waste ground where we were, I was doing an adventure playground with the kids. We were getting some of the wood, some of the old tyres, and nailing them to the trees, and making an adventure playground in this, right? In an area that has got houses half up and half down that they've left, right? And the director of environmental services went nuts. And he went on the radio, and it was recorded in the paper that Boothen and this so-called worker is an environmental disaster, you see. And I was in my flat, you see, with the radio on, hearing that I was an environmental disaster. It didn't cut much ice with me, I didn't bother. And I used to go to work in the afternoon. The mornings were mine because afternoon and evening was when I worked. So that happened something like on the Monday. And then I was on the Tuesday, and this is true story, the local radio had this news flash that the environmental officer couldn't get into his office because there was around 100 people blocking his way until he apologised. And I thought, what the hell? And it was Sean's mum who had heard this, was appalled that this poor lad who's trying to do something for the kids there, and they've left these houses up half and half down, and even a bloody pub that things are hanging out. Well, it can bloody apologise, come on, right? We'll get a bloody bus. Yeah. Right? And they went, and it was in a tower block, you see, the offices were, and they blocked the stairs up, see? And he formally apologised, you know? And of course, I went on, it gave me a chance to go on the radio and said, you know, it's very good of him to apologise and whatever. But we were able to use that to say, how about these houses? Because now, oh my God, if they get upset just because I've said that, council, you know. So we said, okay, that was good. Why don't we go to the council meeting calmly, but as many as we can, right? And let's have a strategy of trying to make it too full. We're not going to make a noise or anything. And it contributed to them agreeing to a 6-month programme of and they levelled some houses out in front of the adventure playground and put grass on it.
Amazing.
Now, it struck a chord with Sean's mum and the other group, and we called it the Boothen Community Group, you see, and met in the local pub. And then we acquired the lease for the piece of waste ground that we had. And so we had this waste ground then and the grass in front. Now, what happened then is the scouts were given a piece of our land, as what they seen it, to build a scout hut on. So they went and thought, oh, great, can we have a hut? No, they wouldn't give us one.
Right.
So they said to me, there's an empty shop over the road. And then I had this idea. I knew there'd be chaos. I was able to hire the shop and turn it into the most unorganised youth club you've ever seen in your life. Not deliberately, just because.
Okay.
You know, there's a shop window with kids like jumping around and whatever. And the council wanted to evict us. And we said, well, if we had permission for a hut over the road, and you can see how that developed a strategy mechanism.
Yeah, really interesting and very relational as well. You know, how one relationship led to the next and one victory led to a little bit more bravery and ideas happening and taking chances.
Well, then, and it's all at this level that the next thing to happen is we had a heat wave in the summer. And so some of the people, they had no gardens, terraced houses, so small pavement and the road, right? So they brought out their chairs and were sunning themselves.
Yeah, okay. I can see it in my head,
So what we had then was, I don't know whether you have special constables in Ireland, like a voluntary constable.
No.
Well, here,
Well, maybe.
They have like special constables. Well, we call them hobby bobbies.
Yeah, like the reserves, maybe, all right, but there's not that many of them.
No, but what it was, he was, you know, quite officious. And so he got one of his other colleagues to come round and clear some of the people back in the houses. You're obstructing.
Oh,
see?
Drunk and power.
So, your professor's mum again. This is why I'm sorry about this, but, you know, this lady featured.
Yeah, she was important. A kind of pillar of the community, she sounds like.
Yeah. They got some sand and they brought out all the furniture and had the road as part of the playground and the sand and the. So what you had then was a holiday type area Right,
in the middle of the road. Amazing.
Yeah.
The ingenuity.
So this got into the papers, and one of the local papers then wanted some notoriety. So believe it or not, they paid for the whole street to have a holiday.
Wow.
Right? And took them on a day trip out to the seaside. And it was all. Now you can imagine what's happening here, slowly but surely, is you don't mess with these people.
Yeah, and it builds the capacity as well, and just the let's take this chance, let's do that, let's show them that the conditions aren't good enough or whatever, and see where we get to.
But you'll see what they're not doing at the moment. There's no placards. There's no. It's to do with the actual concerns that they have.
Yes.
They have, not what the youth worker has. Like,
yes.
I would like to see the certain response times better and other things, but that wasn't their priorities.
Yes.
You know, and one way of tapping into these abilities is working around the concerns that they have.
Yes.
So, you know, being offended at as being called an environmental disaster, and them wanting to defend this young man who was doing his best. That's not me. Promoting myself, their view. And then feeling upset that they couldn't even sit outside.
Yes.
They are pushing the boundaries back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're going back. And so we eventually went. They were building a road, a big road in Stoke called the D Road, because it went round the city, so 2 miles long. And when they'd finished in one area, they had a massive canteen that they were going to burn because they were moving. And so I went along and asked them, would they? It was paint numbers on the different sections, and could we have it? And so they delivered it to our adventure playground, and then the community helped me put it up, because there was a concrete works who made concrete, got to know, and they allowed their wagons with the spare concrete they had after they'd finished the day to come and pour it in our foundations. And then the community helped us build this, and that building stood for 14 years.
Remarkable.
Now,
it must have been so energizing, really, for you as well, to see this growing kind of capacity in the community.
Well, this is the way it went, because they really loved all helping. I hadn't even built a bloody dog kennel, let alone. And we're built, and they're there. And Sean's dad, who worked in the pot bank, was a very good plasterer. And
very handy.
He came, he'd be on a 12-hour shift, and then he'd come at 7 o'clock, and he would plaster part of the walls, and he did that till the whole thing was plastered.
Wow, that is community spirit, all right. And having people offer their talents in this way for the benefit of the whole community.
Here is a man who's working in a pot bank that we didn't realise was a skilled plasterer, Then I had joiners come to help. Then we hit a problem. The part of the council who resented this refused to allow us to connect to the drains, the toilets. Right. And this was the first time that it would be seen as a almost hostile approach to go to what they come to me and they said, look, are you willing to do this, Kev? Because this is wrong, because we couldn't get the toilets in.
Yeah.
About 30 metres away was what we called a pot bank, which was a pottery factory.
Okay.
Stoke-on-Trent was renowned for.
Yes.
This says we've given, you know, a pneumatic drill. You know the pneumatic.
Yeah.
Well, there was the electric people were doing some work, and they bribed the chap there to leave the key in this unit, and they said, "Are you willing to do this? We're all ready. We've got the sand." And this chap knew where the drains were. And we said, right, when it closes at the weekend, we're going to get the drains in before Monday.
Hilarious.
And I thought, I'll get the sack. You know, but we were digging up we dug up and the drains were there. And then, and I had somebody, of course, again, a local builder chap who knew how to eat. Says, right, it needs to be this fall, get that one in. And the kids were throwing the sand in, you know, as we went along.
Wow.
And
do you reckon, sorry, Kevin, do you reckon that people would do this kind of thing in this day and age, or would people be too fearful to just all pitch in this way? Or, you know, was it a creature of the time in a way? Different times?
Well, I would say the severity then, like the police were very physical and hostile.
Oh, right, okay.
Your probation officers, like my secretary of the trustees was a senior probation officer. And I went to see her one day, and one of her officers, as I walked through the corridor of the offices, I just walked through as there was a 17-year-old lad, and he'd already backhanded him once across the face and then was backhanding him again.
Wow.
And I said to
Shocking.
Angela, what the hell is going on? You know? And she said, I know it's terrible. But she didn't feel. When I went to the police station, there was a program here called Life on Mars. I don't know if it ever come over to Ireland. And it was about what it was. It was about, sorry about these digressions, but what it was about somebody who had an accident in the present day. And when they woke up, they were 30 years in the past.
Okay.
So that put them in the 70s. And it's to answer your question, this is, by the way, I haven't forgotten your question. And what happened was he was a police officer, but now he was a police officer in the 70s. And when he went back to his station, it was all new people there, but they recognised him. He couldn't. Yeah. But their behaviour was appalling.
Yeah.
And they had whiskey on the desk. See?
Right.
Now,
the cultural norms were very different.
When I went to see the police a couple of times in the 70s, right, I was offered a drink.
Right. Wow, okay.
It was very similar to that, you see. So what I'm saying is, I think it might have to, there might be a difference, because Boothen isn't brilliant, but if you go down to Boothen, all the changes, the physical changes you can see. What I would say is, if you've got people feeling so disadvantaged and hopeless, no, I can't see why it wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You would, to give you an idea how it moves strategically, we move on then a few years and we've got some other communities, and the council decided that giving money to play schemes during the summer needed to go. We can't afford to spend money on people being paid to play with kids around the street or in the park. And the strategy we used was to completely fill the council meeting and have it on the agenda, but everybody had a sign on that said play schemes save lives. And the strategy was not to speak to any councillor whatsoever, so that when you go and they say, we're very pleased to welcome you, don't answer. Everybody sat there because we've moved on. So what I'm saying is, this is another piece of collective community action.
Yeah.
That's moving with the times.
Uh-huh.
And the process was, when play schemes come up on the agenda, you all, just for 5 seconds, stamp your feet. And the play schemes was kept.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. The energy, that little bit of collective action galvanized the recognition that it couldn't be taken.
I think that the abilities are still there to, because the times change, it doesn't mean that people can't use their skills and ability to gain the respect they need to get the improvements they deserve. My whole point of that is that, though, you work with what is important to the community.
Yes.
Even if you understand and have got a broader horizon, that's where you're trying to attain.
Yeah.
No community in deprivation is going to have the knowledge to be able to access those infrastructures you're trying to put in.
Yeah.
They need to acquire the knowledge.
Yes.
I hope that.
Yeah, no, that is a great point, and that's very relevant to our work in Greentown, where we're trying to stimulate people in the local communities to, I suppose, take action on matters that are important to them, but build the skill sets, as you say, and first of all, sometimes maybe even identify who potential leaders might be. Because I'm just wondering, in some communities, like over time, if they become more and more depressed and deprived, and Sean uses a phrase about stoicism, where people kind of look the other way sometimes when bad things are happening in the community, if it's drug dealing or criminal networks, and they don't want to see it because it's painful to see. I like a phrase about communities being a bit shut down, so that they're not even, like, they don't have actually the energy, because they're kind of in a survival state of collapse almost, that they don't have the energy to take the kind of collective action, to attend the meetings, to open the front door even, maybe. Like, if you came knocking saying, Jane, would you like to do something? Would you join our group? Will you come down the council and stamp your feet? That I'd just be like, blankly, no, that's, I can't.
Of course, yeah.
So do you think in some communities that there is this this kind of depressed or shut down or stoic energy sometimes that can be hard to shift, where there aren't people like Sean's mom maybe who are willing and able to rouse people a little bit?
What I would say, because obviously we, it sounds like we had a magic wand or something.
Yeah.
Didn't work right. It wasn't like that. You start, I am quite passionate about this because I'm still involved in the work. Because we work with some people from war-torn areas who've got horrendous experiences, to motivate them to want to function and live again, right?
Yeah.
You learn. Now, you need people to feel that what you're trying to do gives them a desire to do it, or they need it. So some of the things that we did is work with the kids, and we said, oh, the children would like to go to the Blackpool Lights. Like, we have this place, right? And you may have to invest some money. Well, what do they have to do? Oh, nothing. We'll go a bus, and you're really welcome to come. It's got nothing to do with anything.
Right.
Anything, the drugs. It's got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And well, what will be? No, it'll be bringing you back. It don't matter if it's a small trip. Don't matter. But, and right, everyone was going. Oh, do you know? We went. It was lovely.
Yeah. So building a relationship with the person.
Well, it's more than that. It's opening that closed, where they feel that all that's left is to stay here and hide. You've opened the door where they come out and
start exploring the world again a little bit.
Just run out of it, and speaking to the neighbour again, because the other thing that will happen, they'll talk to each other on the trip.
Yeah.
And they'll want to, oh, come down for a cup of tea, or
yeah.
There is a strategy of meeting need that needs to go into communities that have got closed.
Yes.
It needs to be where they don't have to do anything but benefit from what you're doing.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to step, we're Christmas party for the kids. Will motivate quite a lot of parents. You haven't, what? Oh no, it's free.
Yeah, they'll come out and attend.
Those are the kind of activities in areas that are closed, where if you're ever going to, the thing about drugs and that structure and culture is it thrives in isolated communities.
Yes.
If you can popularize the people again in the areas, they don't even have to be aggressive. The trouble is with what we're talking about, you need this kind of time and thought processes, because the answers are not easy.
Yeah.
It's not about, what I'm saying is approaches that give people like ourselves an opportunity to work in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cure. What it is, you've got opportunities to work at a level that will stimulate your community. And it needs to be always at their need area.
Yeah.
Holiness, economic, so something that doesn't cost anything, but is almost too good to be true.
Yeah. And just on the kind of, they don't need to do anything to get it. So one of the strategies for building community efficacy is to try to stimulate leadership in the community. But I imagine from what you just said there, that in these more closed, highly stressed communities, asking people to put up their hands to sign up for a leadership course might be a bit threatening. So the Christmas party, the coffee mornings, the going to see the lights, the bus trips, whatever. Let them get comfortable with that and being out in their community for a time before they might wish to explore something further.
Well, a desire to have what you've got and it not to go away.
Yes.
The only way it's not going to go away is for them to be involved in that.
Yeah.
And, you see, it's the natural processes. Like I always have felt that life is simple. We try to complicate it. The cures that we have are too complex.
Yeah.
They're too complex. In our clubs, we didn't have any rules because why on earth do you need extra rules than the way the majority of people live?
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If we did a trip with young people and we were taking them away, and people used to say, you take a cook, why don't you have them cooking for themselves for character building? And, I don't know where that comes from. Well, so when you go on holiday, unless you're going self-catering, you're going to go on holiday, are you? And then say, oh, don't worry, I'll cook. Right?
Yeah.
They're going to have an experience they haven't had. They're going to see people they haven't seen. They're going to have something. They're going on holiday.
Yes.
That is, they're going to have an experience because if they've got an experience they haven't had, they're going to come back and talk about it.
Yes.
They're going to have something to take to school. They're going to have something that is their experience.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went away, we used to say, right, because we took kids from the homes as well. Look, what we can't do is if you nick anything or that, I don't want you to think we're going to abandon you. We're not. But this is how it goes. You'll get arrested and we'll make sure that you're treated properly. We'll then notify the home or your parent or guardian where you are. We'll make sure someone's with you there. And while you're processed and nothing bad happens to you, then the rest of us need to carry on with the holiday.
Right. Okay. So you miss out on the holiday but we will support you. Yeah.
It's not, we can, but if you do, because and
that seems fair.
Well, other times with the teenagers, I took a group away and they said, we're going on a trip. And they said, oh, you got to watch us, we're thieving bastards.
Oh.
And I said, oh, all right. So we stopped halfway at a shop to get some refreshments and they piled in the shop. So I went in the shop and I said to the shopkeeper, it's only fair to tell you that
they just told me.
Don't nick anything, And he told us to get out the shop, else he'd phone the police. And they went mad with me. And I said, oh, you want me to lose my job? That I stop and let you. You told me to watch you because you're thieving bastards. Did you mean it? What was I supposed to do? Shall we go back home? Right. I don't want to have to do that. But what would you do? If somebody said, oh, if you let him in his house, he's going to nick something. Mm. And I knew that and didn't tell you. How would you feel? Mm. We live in the real world here. I'm not going to lose my job. I want to do this. And it's that lack of fear of not living in. It's simple is best. Mm. I'm not. I'm not a soft policeman. I'm
Yeah.
not a hard youth worker.
Yeah.
I'm there to facilitate and because I enjoy earning my money, doing something positive. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it has to be also at that level where it's realistic.
Yeah. I get you, Kev. And just in terms of those type of boys there who, you know, had internalized, and girls, okay, who had said such terrible things about themselves, calling themselves thieving bastards, you know, they'd internalized it, and no doubt their behaviors matched that reality at times.
Well, with pride.
With pride, okay. But you know, when you're working with at-risk young people like that, or I mean, they'd maybe even gone beyond that phrase, who are engaging in antisocial behavior, or who are, you know, taking drugs and committing various crimes, maybe involved in networks, which all have a negative impact on their communities and the estates that they live as well, is dealing with the youths primarily the role of police, do you think? I presume not, given that the fact that you were a youth worker for many years.
Yeah, I think the primary objectives of working with young people who are at risk of their own behaviour is to find solutions.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't the police's job.
Mm.
The primary objective of working with young people in that situation is that they don't cause destruction to themselves and others. That isn't the policeman's job. So what I'm not trying to be smart there. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not challenging you when I say this, is the police are there to clean up society's mess.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever way society wants it cleaned up.
Right.
Now, that doesn't have to be as negative as it sounds. If you've got somebody that is a complete danger to society, neither you nor I or any youth worker is going to stop somebody who's running around with a knife and a gun.
Mm.
So there is a role there for the police. And part of that role is valuable, whether we like it or not. And without that, there is no consequence, because one of the other things that we need to get through to young people in this is that how severe the consequences to their lives are.
Mm.
Just as people, as person, as likely to destroy the future, likely to cause their children to have a shocking time.
Mm.
But yes, the police's attitude at times cannot be helpful. But their brief is such that our job is to avoid those final solutions to have to be implemented.
Yeah.
We can't do anything about, you know, using those that. So we can. Our job is to get people to realise that the police isn't the answer to their young person taking drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, may I give you an example of how I got in a lot of trouble because of something like this?
Sure. If you're willing to share it, yes, please.
I was working with a group of youngsters who I got to know were using a derelict shop upstairs as basically where they were actively involved in sexual activity, and saw it as a exciting activity. We're doing this. Not people being coerced.
Yeah.
Not girls who just wanted a kiss and nothing else. It was happening.
Yeah.
And so I hope I can be direct in this video, speaking to you.
Sure.
I didn't know where to start at first. And so I felt that the first things to try and avoid was unwanted pregnancies and infection. And so I encouraged them to come away from penetration and to fondle, poke, rub,
Right.
that get some pleasure that way rather than what you're doing.
Harm reduction kind of model almost.
Yeah. Well, this got back to the parents of the community,
right,
who reported me.
Okay.
And so the police and the press had a field day.
Okay, gosh.
And so I did go on the radio. I did, you know, and they, whether they agreed with me or not, was immaterial. What I was saying is, I'm starting at where the situation is.
Yeah.
And none of you, I don't stood out against my community, none of you are doing anything about this. And if that place closes, it won't stop it happening. The only thing it will do is you'll be able to shut your eyes to it again. So if you, police and everything, want to shut your eyes to it and pretend it's not happening, that isn't my job. My job is to get these young people to survive without being infected, without ruining their lives, and progress from there.
Yes.
This is unpalatable to, you wouldn't get any youth training that would encourage you to
have those kind of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the problem is the areas that you're talking about, whether it's crime, drugs, those are the conversations that need to take place.
Yes,
right?
I understand.
Drugs, particularly heroin, relieves stress like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, takes pain away and numbs feelings.
But it also, I had a controversial course I went on, a medical, you wouldn't do it now in the 60s, where under medical provision, you experienced LSD. And stuff, yeah. So I experienced seeing the music go into cascading colours coming out of speakers.
Nice, yeah.
Absolutely fun. Fascinated, you know, unbelievable. And I experienced feeling that I didn't have a worry in the world. Now, that is what the first stages of how it does, you think, what have I got to worry about? What?
Yeah.
Now, when you're terrified, when you're disillusioned with your life, when you feel less than rubbish, when you feel that nothing's gone right for you and all that melts away.
That's a good feeling to chase.
Yeah. So that has to be discussed on, to get that feeling, alternatively, is virtually impossible. So what has to happen there is how can you live without that feeling, without finishing up? That, is it worth the destruction? Because there's a point where, and the other people don't realise, I know you do, but it's worth saying this. The problem with things like heroin is that when you don't take it after a while, you become seriously ill.
Mm.
You feel sick.
Mm.
You're going to feel like hell. So there's a point where you're taking it to not feel like hell.
Mm. And the joyful, peaceful part is gone.
Because now it's gone into the second stage.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people how they can avoid that second stage. Now, you know that, but society does not understand. They think that it's just taking it for kicks. And there's a point where it isn't for kicks anymore. And we, as youth workers and people who care, have to deal with it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying to a little toddler, if you run across the road, you'll get run over. And they run across the road and they don't get run over. Right? If you keep running across the road, there is a very good chance that you will get killed. One of the times it will happen. That is a different message. And that's the same message with drugs. It's no good because, you know, drugs are no good for you. And somebody feels, you what? I had a bloody great time. I felt great, you know. So our messages are dangerous to society. And society tends to restrict us from reaching out to young people at the point where they're at.
Yes.
And that is a hurdle for us. And so as a youth worker, you've got to really go back to your philosophy and really,
the realness point again.
I hope that I've explained.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Kev. And I'm conscious of our time, but I would, if I could just ask you two more brief ones. I'd like to return to the asylum seekers point, if only because Sean mentioned that you were doing really important work in trying to tackle racism way back when it was, you know, way before Black Lives Matter, way before it was an imperative really to start doing that type of work. I don't know if you'd like to say something about that, but also, you know, on the just the general needs and vulnerabilities of asylum seekers and dealing with the hostility now in the UK with the current government and, you know, battening down the hatches and not wanting to let people in.
Yeah. On the government level, racism in the early days was a political tool. You know, black people have taken your jobs. We won't let that happen. And now our secretary, your Home Secretary, you know, who isn't fit to sweep a scrapyard, to be honest, has said that homelessness is lifestyle choice. You know? So how do we deal with it? There's two areas that we can deal with the racism. One is for enlightened people to have the courage to say what simple steps need to be taken to take away the criticisms of your racist leaders. And if I can take asylum seekers as an example, what embitters people here is asylum seekers are given some money and somewhere to live. And the other thing that embitters people is the amount of people we've got who we don't know whether they are proper asylum seekers or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And they have sympathy with the government, and it's a mess. They're filling the country, right? And there's two things, right, that would alleviate things. One, they do not allow an asylum seeker a work permit. Now, if you're a Canadian and you come to this country and you're doing something, you can get a work permit. Now, there is no reason why we have got a doctor, dentist, asylum seekers not allowed to work.
I know.
Doctor, dentist, at our centre, right? Not mechanics. Now, I don't mean if you're not skilled, you shouldn't. But what I'm saying is, if people have a work permit, two things happen. They choose where they want to live and can afford to pay, and they contribute to the economy and the society they're living in. And their value,
share their gifts, yeah.
And they deny that to the community. The other is that when a person is repatriated and gets permission to stay, in a matter of a week or so, although it should be more, their money's cut off and they can't live in the poor conditions that they're in. So that then creates, this person hasn't been allowed, while they've been here as an asylum seeker, they're not allowed to have a bank account, right? They're not allowed to travel places so where they can live. They're incarcerated. And they're trying to live on £40 a week, including they have to pay their rent if the hovel they're in after that as well.
Yeah.
Now, if when a person is repatriated, if the process was different, where they were then given time where they are to get a bank account, to register as unemployed, to get unemployed benefit, to then seek a job, the homelessness would be drastically reduced. So the two areas that society and the politicians use at a stroke would be gone.
Yes.
And we need society to say, why won't you do that?
And how do we get society to say that?
I think this is where people like yourself and myself and people have to be saying this, instead of it getting wrapped up in whether Labour will say it or Conservative or Liberal will say this. Within our communities, that's what we do. Within our communities, we educate the community.
Yeah, within our sphere of influence.
Yeah, well, that's not bloody right. You know, I can't get a bloody dentist or no doctors. Well, and, you know, so people get arrested for washing cars to try and earn a bit more money.
Yeah,
and
it's obscene.
So the clarity, there are some solutions that if we've got solutions, we need to keep saying to the Home Secretary and everybody, why are you doing that and costing the country money, depriving us of valuable services, stopping where you can reduce homelessness and help homeless people? Why aren't you doing that? And again, I come back to simple is best. We feel we have to sometimes, I believe, take politicians on in their own language, and we don't. We don't. We say, you know, you never hear them on there say, Mr. Johnson, the way you behave and when you're talking like that, do you seriously think that you're being seen as a person who's fit to be leading the country? You know, do you think that answer? They don't do that.
Yeah.
And so
it's befitting our leader. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is, we can't cure, but we can put the bricks in the wall. We can, you know, if we can't change something, we can be a beacon. And beacons shine a light on things that you can avoid then. You know, we can help communities to avoid the racist things because you're shining a light on the reality of a situation. And so instead of saying, oh, that's wrong to do that, it can be, that doesn't make any sense. What, you know, because does this make sense to you? Well, yeah. Well, why aren't they doing that? I agree. You can see that.
Yeah. Countering some of the false beliefs
by
that can be.
The ridiculous situation rather than keep saying to someone, that's racist and
yes.
that's against the law and you shouldn't be saying that, right? They're saying that because they believe they're being wrong. They believe they're being deprived. They believe they're being threatened. That's why they're saying that. Sometimes that's how women got the vote. That's how children stopped being put up chimneys. It wasn't sudden legislation. It was people feeling this is wrong and creating a groundswell.
Yeah.
And we, you know, if we can't do anything else, we can help to start contributing to a groundswell of positivity, a groundswell of logic, you know, then you don't feel impotent.
Yes. Yes. And that's a terrible feeling, which also feeds fear. If you think, you know, I don't think this way, but clearly lots of people do, that people from Africa or other countries, Muslim people are coming in, taking over jobs, and politicians then, like your Home Secretary, are feeding the fear. Feeding those fearful narratives. So you're right, people who have other information and other perspectives and know, as you just saying there about the gifts and talents and qualifications that are being squandered, and the deprivation of meaning and purpose for people in their lives. It really is awful.
It's like we're denying the Geneva Convention of 1949. This country here, hear no evil, see no evil, and allow murder and slaughter, right? And say, well, it's more complex than that. No, it's not. No, it's not. You know, killing is wrong.
Yes.
Full stop. And certainly institutional and state killing is absolutely is an abomination. And people will believe, if we believe, we can't be, if we try, I believe, if I constantly, don't get me wrong, on a personal level, you know, I have spoke out about racism and so have you. But if we want to change things, we've got to be able to offer people logical, sensible reason that makes them feel, well, why is that happening? And we have to put the why into our communities.
Yeah.
You know, because that's where it all grows and festers. And when we start, I said to people, like our asylum seekers, we had a group of them who were playing football in the park. And they couldn't believe that they could go in a park and play football, right? So they came to us and said, where could we get some bags and stuff? What for? As a thank you, they wanted to go around the park and clear up the litter.
Oh, wow.
Nothing to do with us saying,
yeah,
it wasn't motivated by us.
Yes.
They said, well, no, you know.
Came from their own inner selves. Yeah.
So, and the park people, there's a hobby of people who have been given some patches in the, and I can prove this and show you, where some of the people now I've been given some pieces to garden in the park. Nice. And they were so impressed that they were doing that. They've invited them to be part of their garden. People just naturally, not us.
That's amazing.
Right? Because they saw them doing
their citizenship.
Yeah.
Even though they're not citizens legally, you know, but their desire to contribute.
Yeah, because again, it was the simple fact that to them it made sense. Why do you want to have a mess around? It's a great park, we'll do that. I mean, the funny thing was, as a charity, they brought back 50 bags of rubbish that we had to pay for to get rid of.
Yeah, oops. Yeah, that's so funny.
But £50 well spent.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, it was indeed. I think, Kevin, we'll leave it there. That's a really nice anecdote actually to finish on, I think, you know, because sometimes the right thing to do isn't always the cheapest thing to do. And you've certainly given me immense food for thought with regard to our own program and our focus on youth justice and trying to build stronger communities and communities that want to do the right thing where all humans can flourish in them or have the best opportunity to do so. So thank you so much for your time. This has been Relationship Matters, and I've been joined by Kevin Sauntry. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Thank you for letting me express some of my feelings and views. It's been grand to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been really nice. Thanks, Kev.